Thank you, sir. Wow, that's what I mean. And now we have Frank Evans to add his.
I thought it was.
His.
It's okay, I'm just dressing up.
Get it formal, right?
Wait, if you take my picture, it looks a little different from the last picture.
You know, what can you say? I mean, that book was just first of several, wasn't it? What? No.
All right, if I make a mess on this. Well, let me enter.
You want your mic?
Yes, I'm going to have some technical help here. I only taught computers for 12 years, so I didn't teach long enough to learn how to use them, I guess. Let me just introduce this first of all. My name is Frank Evans. I'm a Vietnam era veteran, and I just want to say I salute the gentleman that was up here before and your generation for everything you gave us, sir. So thank you very much for inviting me. The first thing I want to do is say I wrote this book as a labor of love. It was the first book of many that I hope to write. It is a memoir of sorts. It's about my time.
Technologies and weapons change, but throughout the ages.
Yeah. Okay. It was written as a written for my children, my 3 children. I've got a son 21 and one 24 and a daughter 22, and I wanted them to know who I was and why I became the man that I am. You know, whether good or bad, this is what was a pivotal point in my life. And what I want to do first is show you a 2-minute video. It's a commercial, if you will, but it's a summary and introduces you and tells you what the book's about, and then I'll read why I wrote this book. So.
Technologies and weapons change, but throughout the ages, soldiers have experienced similar emotions: joy, loneliness, self-doubt, sadness. And after surviving the horrifying fear of combat, servicemen are left to deal with their memories. E. Franklin Evans confronts those memories in his stirring memoir, Stand To, A Journey to Manhood. At the tender age of 19, Frank left for basic training in 1966. Deep within a treacherous war, far removed from his carefree youth, Frank learned to survive and to lead. Evans recounts his time at the Ben Het Special Forces Camp A-244, the daily bombardment, the siege on the camp by the North Vietnamese, the period when friendly strike force units held the American soldiers of Camp A-244 hostage until their demands were met. Timeless in its tale, Stand To is the author's personal reflection into a highly controversial and emotional time in our nation's history. Not about shoot-'em-up combat laced with blood and guts. Stand To relates a readable account of one young man's daily experiences in Vietnam. A first-hand glimpse into infantry life. Humorously captivating and believably human. Stand To, A Journey to Manhood.
Okay, I hope that gives you a little idea of what my book is about. Put my glasses on here so I can read this. I'd like to read the prologue to my book and give you an idea of why I wrote this and why this book is was such a labor of love and so difficult for me to write. Vietnam introduced me to an early morning practice that recalled an abrupt awakening I'd had 2 years early as a teenage student. Stand To is short for Stand To Arms. During World War I, it was believed that most enemy attacks occurred immediately before dawn. The practice of ensuring that all soldiers were awake and alert for an impending attack just before light carried through into the Vietnam conflict. Each morning, soldiers on the defensive perimeters of fire bases, patrol bases, and base camps were awakened and instructed to arm and dress in full combat gear, and in World War I, Stand To was also referred to as the morning hate. When I was 19, I experienced my own morning hate one Saturday morning. I've often thought of that terrible day and the aching feeling as I awakened to tragic news. It has taken me over 35 years to begin writing this book. And although I've wanted to compose this book for many years, I didn't begin putting my thoughts on paper until July 2005. I always knew how my book would start, but the painful memory that kept my words inside me all those years. What finally prompted me to act? Well, perhaps it was accepting that I am mortal and that age is creeping up on me. Prior to this realization, the physical act of putting these words to paper was simply too painful. I wouldn't allow myself to think about the agonizing circumstances that led me to volunteer for Vietnam. My sister and I shared this pain since 1966, but neither of us would discuss that summer day when the war suddenly became personal for us. Over the years, I've often wondered how my sister recalled that morning and has she coped with her grief. Fortunately, shortly before she died, unexpectedly, we discussed our feelings about the incident. She told me it was comforting to know I was affected as strongly as she was, although neither of us could articulate those feelings for years. That Saturday morning, I felt the private sorrow and anguish that many others had felt before me. That day was my awakening to world events outside my hometown. It was my stand to, and I had to look at the world a little bit differently. I had to prepare for whatever unpleasant, unexpected things might happen. Until then, the war was a televised broadcast of events somewhere far, far away. It didn't touch me except for a half hour each evening after dinner, when I sat in front of the TV and watched curiously as Walter Cronkite summarized the day's combat events and casualties. It was an impersonal view, and I was detached from the reality that these casualty numbers represented real people with families, friends, wives, and sweethearts. When it became heartbreaking, I put away the pain and tried not to think about it. Life went on, and though I often thought about it, these thoughts were fleeting. Many say that the healing process begins with an expression of sorrow. With this book, I began to express my sorrow for the first time in many years. That book started a flood of words. When I wrote that and got past the first chapter, which had to do with the dying of my best friend in Vietnam, and awakened me to the world around me and showing me that there was more to life than what I was chasing at the time, that we had to contribute, we had to know, we had to be part of world events. When that happened, it was a pivotal point in my life. That's why I became the man I am. That's why my children see me as I am, and hopefully they've taken from me the best gifts that I can give them. Understanding of other people's cultures, the sacrifices that our soldiers make throughout history, particularly those now in Iraq, Afghanistan, what their families, girls, sweethearts, loved ones, friends are all going through. This book is not a book about shoot 'em up, blood and guts, I'm a great hero kind of book. That's not what I wanted this book to be. It's not political. It simply tells the emotions that this young man felt in Vietnam, from sadness, loneliness, some joy, the whole range of emotions that a young man far away from home in a dangerous situation faces. And hopefully it'll reach people that have friends and family in harm's way and give them a better understanding of what they're going through. Thank you very much.